I know I said that was going to be us closing up, but I wanted to ask one more thing about persistent entity streaming. So
Okay.
I have been very excited about the idea of objects persisting anywhere in the game and all that stuff. I only this just shows how inexperienced I am when it comes to MMOs. I only really just realized that most games don't do that. Correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like the ability for entities to persist outside of player inventories and things that really have them attached to a player is a pretty big deal in the industry as a whole. Would you agree with that?
At the scale of Star Citizen, yes.
Okay.
It's to do with the scale and the fact that it's a multiplayer game, but yes.
Yeah. The multiplayer aspect of it seems like a big part of it. The networking that goes involved with that. You say also the scale. Are there other smaller MMOs or games that you've heard of doing stuff like this?
Well, I mean, there's stuff that's tracked to some degrees in lots of games, but not to the extent that Star Citizen wants to do it. Obviously, the clear up is done sort of like, well, they don't care if you just see things disappear in most games. So lots of games do it to some extent, but persistent entity streaming's a bit more complex in the fact that they want some objects or most objects will be like, well, actually that's sort of there permanently until it gets cleared up, and the servers will save that data even between effectively resets or crashes or whatever.
Yeah.
So it is long-term persistent.
Do you think that this feature, if it works how they want it to, will translate into positive press for them? Do you think people will pick up on it in the industry, or will it kind of just go under the radar?
If it works and works well, and there's silly memes and players do silly things with it, yes, it'll be fantastic. It depends on in what state we get it in its first iteration, and is it still a buzzword when we have it?
Okay. I wonder how this stuff is viewed outside of the community, because Star Citizen generally isn't seen as making a big deal of things. But when they start to actually hit some of these goals that they've had for a while with tech that's relatively impressive, I do wonder how it's perceived outside of the community. That's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people now that are a lot softer on Star Citizen than they were. They're less aggressive about it when they write about it. And there's a lot of new journalists now that have never even really covered Star Citizen before. So I actually think that they're in quite a good place for some positive journalist work.
So the
positive media.
for one of the very first times in the industry, a video game has managed to outage its detractors and bring in a new crowd.
Oh, yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
That's pretty good.